and monitor. Honestly.
Then we won't be seeing a.
As ugly as you are, this camera makes you look good. I know I'm biased, but.
So, this is on. So we're on the Panisonic Camcorder right now. We are on 0 dB of gain. We're on some indoor white balance setting, something or other. We have 4 soft boxes in the room of different kinds. Most of them are just the CFL based 3 or 4 light soft boxes, daylight, color, and 1 newer LED bicolor. So we're recording this in ProRes LT on the Atomos Sumo. We are live streaming it using Livestream Studio out to Vimeo. And let's see.
We currently have 3,000 viewers.
Yes, that's exactly right. 3,000 viewers.
Just because you used my name.
Oh, I forgot to include your name. I forgot something. So, for all the peoples up at this hour of the night, let's send it to Facebook.
Oh boy.
And we're out of YouTube.
Oh, that's great.
I didn't really want that channel. Can we edit it? Delete. Maybe if I sign into YouTube on the channel, then I will.
It's a handy little side monitor, but I will say the iPad and sidecar mode is pretty handy.
It is. I only have the 10-inch iPad though. Well, 11-inch, and it only goes so far.
Yeah.
It's just not that much real estate, and it's weird aspect ratio by comparison to the other monitor, and my children have it half the time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just attach. You can't just make it one thing and go. So, so far I've been okay. Why in the world is Carter doing? Still saying it's live. It's not live. Software running the switch counts. Let's go.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Maybe it is. Alright. Add. No. Fine. Boo, YouTube.
If we're not careful, I could demonstrate a narcoleptic nap attack.
You could probably do that.
Yeah.
You are sufficiently capable of it, that's for sure.
I don't think I had seen that logo before. The CEC.
Yeah. Working on that.
You should keep working on
Yes. Clearly. Should we start this at 2:05 a.m.? No. Why would we do that? Did I actually get the NDI? Oh, I did. Stream.
recapturing this.
Remote. Add remote input. NDI. Connect an NDI camera? Well, I'd like to. That's almost exactly what I had in mind.
Natural.
Yes.
see where I am.
It really is.
Hmm.
I was just thinking that myself. Video monitor. Do we have an NBI stream out there anywhere? Because if so, we'd love to see it. One moment. We'll go make sure the other end of that Ethernet cable is actually plugged into something. And you plug the other end of the NBI connection into a Yamaha TF1 audio mixer, you will not get DHCP. You just won't. You want to pull that power and let it just power cycle here for a moment, please. And oh no, never mind. It's got greasy kid stuff now. All right. Now let's try adding a NDI camera. Stream.
Vimeo live stream studio can take NDI.
Hey, there we are. Yes, it can. Graphics.
It's laggy.
And that graphics can include, well, it's on Wi-Fi. We're gonna.
Oh, maybe it's that bandwidth thing that I was talking the other day.
I wouldn't think so.
No. It's nothing to do with it.
All right. So we can now throw up that one, and we have all of our cameras, all of our stuff, and we can get a screenshot of this. I think it might be the MacBook that's getting laggy, to be honest. But maybe not. Facebook. Why did I do that? That was a terrible idea. Use the stream key. Excuse me. Remember that thing that you said would be a terrible idea?
I do remember something like that. Really terrible idea to do in certain environments.
Uh-huh. Was this one of them?
This was a specific environment.
All right. So, for all you people out there who may or may not ever watch this, probably won't. Uh-oh.
Now.
Hey, audio.
Glad you have a broadcast.
I am so glad.
I am so glad to have a broadcast engineer.
Broadcast engineer. Flavor. Alright, so this is the ultimate camera shootout with a certain price limiting quantity of cameras. We have 8 cameras. We have 3 PTZs. We've got Bird Dog P200. We've got Bird Dog P100. We've got a PTZ Optics 30 NDI. All 3 of these cameras are capable of SDI, HDMI, NDI network videos. Everything that we have here is HDMI or SDI in its current workflow, all going into a Blackmagic TV Studio 4K that provides all of the capabilities of the stuff, as well as getting everything in the same format. What we are looking at right now, of course, you've got the multi-view over the shoulder, and we have the one Panisonic camcorder. This is the VX770. It's 4K consumer camcorder in the right situation, given a moderate amount of manual control and setting. It does pretty good. And so we've got that. Now, one of the things we're demonstrating here is what cameras can do when you put them in a room that has a lot of light in it. A lot of times, and one of our main focuses is and what works well for churches, and somebody on live stream says sounds really choppy. We lost audio. You know what? It's coming in that GH3 and that cable that we plugged in the GH3 was kind of finicky. GH3 is going in and out. That would cause the audio to go.
I ended up switching.
Okay.
This was better than that.
Well, I don't know.
Is it any better now?
Plug something in and find out. So now I'm going to hear myself talk about 4 minutes after I actually say something. You know what? It could be the setting.
Here on the computer. Also using here as it's going kind of
Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. We at least have some audio to work with. Should hear myself any moment. Somewhere along the way, we lost the NDI. Alright, it's disconnected. Let's try reconnecting. You know what would solve this? Had we plugged in the A10 Mini to the MacBook. That would have solved it. That would have done it right there.
Get it out of my truck. I don't know, actually.
You could? You could.
Pretty good, isn't it? It is really-
Can't always live without technical difficulties. So I'll go through here and talk about some of the cameras. So we mentioned the Panasonic HC. Let's see what this thing. All right, Panasonic HCVX870. That is the first camera that we're using right now. We also have the Blackmagic Studio Micro 4K. That's a small camera about yay big. Doesn't come with a lens. You attach a micro four thirds lens on it, and it has SDI out, has HDMI out, has some flexibility on adapters connectivity to be able to change what it sees. We'll switch over to that here in a minute. We also have a ZCam E1. The ZCam line started off as kind of a low-cost option similar to a GH3, GH4, AF100 from Panisonic line, but in a small little almost action camera size device, but it's got a micro four thirds lens mount, so put a nice 25 millimeter lens on it. The Blackmagic, I should say this, the Blackmagic Studio 4K has an Olympus Pro 40 to 150 lens on it, so it's going to feel very zoomed in compared to the rest of the cameras. There's also another Blackmagic that we have in this roundup that also has the 40 to 150 Olympus lens on it. They're great lenses, but they're not made for a room this size. So they're going to feel a little more zoomed in than the other cameras. So we've got the Panasonic camcorder. We've got the Blackmagic 4K Micro. We have the ZCam. Then next in line we have the PTZ Optics 30X NDI camera. Then we also have the Panasonic GH3. Now it has a similar Olympus lens as the two Blackmagics, but instead of a 40 to 150, it is running a 12 to 40 lens, or 17 to 40 maybe. And so we're going to kind of zoom in as far as it will go. and zoom the two Blackmagics out as far as they will go, and hopefully have a similar zoom capability or picture framing on those two as we have on the others. Next in line after the Panasonic GH3 is the BirdDog P200. Next to last, the BirdDog P100. And then last of all, but not least, the Blackmagic Ultra HD production studio. This is the one with the great big giant 10-inch screen on the back. And it's also running the 40 to 150 lens from Olympus. So let me set up our next shot, and Steve went to go see if he could grab the A10 Mini, the A10 Mini. And so we'll wait for him to come back, and we'll kind of set some color and information on this next shot. Shutter speed, bring it down a little bit. Making direct action. I think we got plenty of light to work with. So I'll let you kind of position it. We're on the Blackmagic Micro. And I lost network control of the A10, so I don't know what happened. Yeah. Need somebody as tall as you are. Something to be said here is we'll throw up a picture of these cameras, but we don't have 8 tripods in this room, and so we have lined these cameras all up on the top of a TV case and travel case. Not a cardboard box, but as a result of that, we have less than spectacular flexibility in. It's not on. So I mean, until you change the. Steve's over here shaking the camera around like it's going to accomplish something when all he's really doing is just getting some exercise. Alrighty. Well, we're anything but in focus. Yeah, a little soft. That's too bad.
Focus peaking.
That's
Is it
too,
right?
unfortunately, I still look like me. So this is zero gain. For those who don't know, when you're dealing with cameras, gain is taking the amount of light that comes into the lens and boosting it up. This one is set to zero gain and running at 120 frames per second. Shutter speed, the shutter is set at 120, not 120 frames per second. It is 2:30 in the morning, so if I say something wrong, it happens. So the shutter's at 1/120. So can certainly be brought back down to 60 since we're running in 60, and we could get more brightness out of the room, but it seems pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. If we had just a little more light, and matter of fact, this type of camera has the ability to connect up to a Blackmagic ATEM's mixer, and as a result you actually have camera control, and you have lighting control, and you have color control all built into this camera. So you put it in a well-lit studio and you've got a good platform to work from. I can't notice any real noise in the shot. I mean, I'm staring at it on a 19-inch broadcast monitor from Atomos, and we are recording the output of this on the Atomos. We are going to stick that recording in to go with this whole production. It's recording in ProRes LT. For the sake of time, we're not going to go any higher than LT, but I think that gives us more than enough to work with. So that is the Blackmagic. Our color is set on what? What are we on that Blackmagic? 5,000 maybe? Steve says he doesn't have a clue what the color is. That's okay. We're going to go with it's something or other. Hey, Steve, I'm going to make a recommendation to you. That ZCam, you could just screw right on top of that mount sticking up from the other, and it would actually be able to be used.
It's like on fire.
So some cameras are made to do video, but they might get a little warm. And the ZCam happens to be one of those cameras that it is so small, it can do all the way up to 4K. As a matter of fact, I think it's shooting in 4K at the moment and is actually outputting the HDMI in 1080p 60. So it's pretty hot to the touch, and so we're letting Steve suffer through that. Can you slide the mount to the center, and then it won't tilt nearly as much?
Yeah.
We're just kind of rocking and rolling. There you go.
Great. Amazing stuff. I really don't know
There's a video on the back of it, isn't there? Hit menu, the bottom button on the right, like once or twice or 3 times. And also, we're not on that shot yet because I don't have network control. We're going to say that like 17 times. Oh boy, here we go. All right, so the settings on this camera are apparently not right. Let's see what it looks like. Woo! All right, well, I'm paler than an Eskimo.
Well, we got that part right.
All right, let's see if we can dial this in a little bit.
So 640.
Let's go with that. Your aperture's 2.5, that's okay. Let's bring that out. That's okay. And let's change that color a little bit. Not quite that much. I have no idea. I used the edge of that marker last time. Okay. Everybody was probably really not happy with me focusing this thing out. Counterbalanced with the on the head of a VGA pin.
Nothing but the best for you, man.
That's right. That's right. Nothing but the best. We're still a little hot, actually. We could lose a little bit more of that game. So that bottom button,
Yep.
and then the two above it go up, go left and right,
Mm-hmm.
and the one above it selects.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you what, we can put something. Hey, you know, that's one of the reasons right there why the color is so yeek. So we had some room lights on, and one of them happened to be a very, very interesting color of blech.
That's what you need, a hair light.
Yep, I need a hair light. I need more hair. That would help too. So, that doesn't look bad. Doesn't look terrible. Kind of need to go back to the other two now that we've changed the whole lighting arrangement. It's not kind of giving them a fair shake. But they looked okay. Now, what we would normally do, we being me, I don't know what Steve would normally do. Steve doesn't like to, fix cameras or check settings or anything like that. What I would normally do is I would put a gray balance right here where I was going to be, and set the focus, and then use that gray balance to get gray at the same level all the way across on what's called a RGB parade. So you have your red scope, and you can see what level gray is. Of course, gray is going to be the same thing across all of them if you're balanced in your color. So I'd change the color until they all matched all the way across on every camera, and then we'd kind of do a fair shootout from that point. Is every single camera gray balanced, and then we actually see how it looks. But we only have so much time, and it's already 2:30 in the morning, so probably just going to work with what we got. And right now, I think that's pretty good. So we cycled through. Which cameras did you cycle through? The first three?
Yep.
All right. So number 4 is the PTZ optics, and this thing came in yesterday and has not had a lick of setup done to it. But we're just going to pretend that it's good straight out of the box. It's kind of funny because we actually capture the infrared output of it. Maybe it's bleeding. Let's see. Hey, there we go. Now we're controlling the right camera. One thing I did like about what PT Optics did with their remote is they actually put a fast and a slow zoom separate buttons. So if you're trying to go somewhere fast, you can go fast. If you're trying to go somewhere slow, you can go slow. It's not a bad idea.
Especially Drop the controller.
Yeah. I really have not done anything at all to the color or any settings on this, but it looks okay. I mean, normally, again, we put it on the network, we'd get in and we'd manipulate control a little bit. Let's see, we can look at the menu. Hey, look, we do have some controls here. Mode. Let's change off of auto. How about manual? Iris. Let's back it down to 2.8. Shutter. Let's take it to 60. Gain, let's take it all the way to 0. And I don't... Digital noise correction, is that what that is? I don't know what DRC is. But I can tell you that 0 looks better than 8. That I can tell you. We already look a whole lot better. Before, we were very much in one color mode. These PTZs, most of them have what's called a one push white balance, which can work pretty good for just getting a basic white balance. I mean, it seemed to do fine here. Luminance. Contrast. We don't have a lot of color in our picture itself. We can zoom out a little bit. Maybe we can't zoom out while we're in a menu. Noise reduction. We are currently at level 1. There's level 5. Everything is starting to get soft at that point. Something to be said for these PTZs is they need some light. Otherwise, you're going to have noise. It's just a fact of the matter. So, if you want a camera that doesn't have grainy noise in it, then give the camera enough light to actually be able to see. So, all right, well, that's the PTZ optics. Next in line is the Panisonic GH3, which is going to require probably a little bit of rigging up to not be pointed at just the back of the monitor. One moment, I actually have a solution for that. It's probably not very useful. I'll hold back to this side. It was on top there. I wonder if it did that. Also helps me screw it in there. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Sweet. Okay, yeah. Yeah. That's not bad. Yeah. This seems pretty okay. What you can make it. I'll let you focus on one thing back there. So we're at 2A, let's go to 60 frames. So 400 then. That's good. Yep, 300 probably fine. Yep. Alright, we now have camera 5 ready, so we'll focus that up and then we will switch to it. This is the Panasonic Lumix GH3. What happened?
It's all good.
Well, no, because you didn't switch to it.
It's all good. It's beautiful.
But nobody can see
It's
it.
an amazing thing.
Nobody can
Trust
see
me,
it.
nobody wants to see your face.
But they do see my face. They just see it on the last camera. Wow. Ah! That was unfortunate. All right, so some of these cameras, when they focus, I tell you what, if I stand, it thinks I'm in focus right there. They zoom in 10x and you can see, like, you can count the pores on people's faces. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's what it really means to be a cameraman. It's as you stare at people's pores to make sure they're in focus. Those porous people, actually, to be accurate about it. All right. So this is the, as I mentioned, this is the Panisonic GH3. Now this camera is like 4 generations old now. You can buy this camera for about $300 used on eBay. you can put a good lens on it and you can get really good video. Not actually a good picture taking camera per se. It's just it's good at video. They built it for video. It has unlimited record times in the sense of it doesn't have a timeout like a lot of the DSLRs from Canon and Nikon at this generation would, and that price point would. So you can hit record, and so I think I've put 128 gig SD card in it and hit record, and hours later it's still been recording. So
Other than the broken up file formats.
yeah, I think I don't know if it breaks up. I don't know what level at which it breaks up the files and separates them out, but it records in an MOV format. You can take something like the Rode wireless Rode Link or even the Rode Wireless Go's, plug it right into the microphone jack and get good clean audio. Just make sure you take your audio level on the camera and put it all the way down at 1 so that it's not amplifying the audio at all. And
Well, I got a sound bag because you were going through here and the battery died.
that's what it was. We just kind of, in our very tired brains put together why we lost audio earlier, and it was because the battery on this camera died. You can run these off of AC power. That's another thing. Panasonic makes an adapter, and there's some $25 adapters on Amazon as well. Panasonic's is like $85, but still, you find the camera for $300. Spend $85 and get a good, high quality power adapter. At which point you can run it forever.
You don't have to take it together.
Yeah, that you don't have to tape together. The one I got from eBay when I bought one of these, the guy had an AC power adapter, but it didn't have a good picture of it. I got it, and the brick and the plug won't ever stay together, and so I just taped them together. But Panasonic GH3 looks pretty good. So the thing I want to say is right now we've been through a Blackmagic Micro Studio. Sorry, let's start at the camcorder. We've been through a camcorder that costs about $450 everything. Lens, zoom, remote. It's blurry at the moment, but that's because we haven't focused it since we moved it around a bunch. And it does fine. It's not as crisp. It's got a little bit more noise, but it's still, it's overexposed. It can come down some. But it's got good color. So this type of thing would work great for, hey, we need to record a long lesson. This is one of these cameras that's not going to break up the file like some of the other cameras will. Has HDMI out. Now it's micro HDMI out. That's something to note. And the audio input, this is another thing I found with this camera, is mic level only. It doesn't have line level functionality, which means if you have an audio mixer that's putting line level audio out into this camera, it will way overdrive the camera, and your audio will sound just distorted. You'll still have audio, it'll still be distinguishable, but it'll sound distorted. So you either have to buy what's called an attenuator cable to basically take that audio and pad it down 20 decibels to where it's running at mic level, or you've got to run something that's mic level, something like the Rode lavs, wireless, things like that, all run at mic level, and they do fine. So the second camera we have is the Blackmagic Micro Studio 4K. Our color got a little off there because we had the other lights on, and now it's kind of sickly color.
Something to note on
But
that
it's
first one,
crystal clear.
you can have up to 4K output.
Yes. On the SDI, you can have up to 4K output on the Micro Studio. You were talking about it on the camcorder. Yes, the camcorder can also do 4K output. You gotta get the right settings in the menu. You also got to get the settings to turn off the on-screen display, and there's some things you have to do to make it usable if you're going to use the HDMI out. But once you do in a static environment, it does pretty good. Like, just remember you're working off of a micro HDMI port, so they're really small. They break really easily. But we're on to the Blackmagic. Blackmagic Micro Studio 4K. Outside of us needing to color balance it, I don't see any noise. We're in focus. We could actually gain this up a little bit and lose a lot of the depth of field and have an easier time focusing, because we would have a wider depth of field than we have right now. But let me just state, this is the Blackmagic Studio 4K with a $900 lens on it. So you're looking at a $1,200 camera with a $900 lens. You're at $2,100.
$900 used, it's $1,200 new.
Yeah, and these are hard to get a hold of now. They at least for a while during the pandemic, you couldn't find one. And they're riggable. You can mount them somewhere. So they've got a lot of value packed into a little body, but they do run a fan. So if you're in a very closed studio, just be aware of that. You're going to get some fan noise out of it. Trying to think of anything else. Oh, the SDI. It has SDI in and out, but they're the mini DIN connectors. They're not the full-size SDI connectors. They're the mini ones. So you have to buy adapters, or you have to buy cables that have the mini DIN on one end and the full-size SDI on the other.
On-camera display.
Oh yes, and it has no viewfinder at all. It has a battery mount, but it has no viewfinder. The HDMI is really intended to go out to an external monitor, because you get all the information display on the HDMI. You can get rid of a lot of it, but it's not a clean HDMI out. It's a clean SDI out, because it's intended to be an SDI camera. So then we had the ZCam. The ZCam, by far the most inferior in color, in everything. This camera originally was $600. Bought it new for $250 before they discontinued the model. I think it really was a beta project they decided to release. This does not have nearly as good of a lens on it, so I'm going to say that. It's got a 25mm fixed lens. It's an okay lens, but it's not the same level of lens as the Blackmagics or the GH3. So it may be hobbled a little bit in that regard, but that's not the majority of the issue with this camera. The majority of the issue is it's a great camera you can put somewhere and get a recording, but you're never going to be blown away at the color of the recording. Especially the color is what this camera lacks the most. It's very hard to get dialed in. You can get there, but it takes a lot of time, and it's a terrible menu system to get there. So then we have the PTZ optics. It's a little flat. It's got control though. It's bright enough. Doesn't seem to be an insane amount of noise. And you got zoom. You got pan. We can turn around and look at Steve.
You go that far?
Let's see. So dark over there, can't see Steve. Oh, hey, there's Steve's chin. There's Steve. It says, I don't know how to focus in this poor light. So, the value of pan tilt zoom is you can do things like that, and well, let's say we wanted to show the whole studio. Here's the studio top to bottom.
Definitely show the ground. That's
Yeah, obviously a work in progress. This is not a finished studio. This is very much work in progress. But especially once you zoom in and get a good shot, get it something it can focus on, the camera does well. I'm pleased with this. Add on top of it, you're getting the value of it's got full HDMI out, it's got full SDI out, it's got a 30x zoom, it's got NDI out if you want network control, so you can do all of your control and power across the network, so you don't have to have an AC plug if you go mount this thing somewhere. Just run an Ethernet cable to it with power over Ethernet, PoE, and you have control across the network. You can see it anywhere on the network, and you can set up presets, and preset 1, and it goes and zooms into preset 1 and sets the focus and the color and the brightness and everything automatically, and set preset 2, and it goes and changes to that, and all of that stuff's automatic as well. So for $1,800, it's around $1,800. It's a pretty good platform.
Panisonic image sensor, Olympus lens, which built into it, and
Okay.
you can ditch the NDI, save you like $150 for the lens.
Yes, you can go with the non-NDI option, and it's got a Panasonic. You said a Panasonic sensor and an Olympus lens, and you can go with the model without the NDI, and you'll save about $100. I like the NDI, if not for broadcast, but for control. The ability to take any Windows PC, any Mac, any Linux computer, and install a free piece of software and have complete control and view of the camera, even if that's not your broadcast view, even if that's not what you're running into your mix or your live stream, that's pretty nice. No custom software needed, no special software needed, just the free NDI tools from New Tech online, and you have complete control of the camera. So I like that. You also have scopes and other things like that, because that functionality is built in as well, I think. If not, it's in other places. So that brings us back to the Panisonic GH3. And
Get some more zoom if you're not scared of it.
yeah, go for it.
Should be interesting.
Let's see what we've got. We're gonna play a little bit with the zoom.
Oh, that's all I
Oh,
can do. How about
woo!
that?
Yeah, we could maybe zoom it out a little and stop focusing this camera.
I could.
I think we might edit that part.
I can put the other lens on it.
This is a good time to get some water.
Switch back to the PTZ optics real quick. same. Had a very different.
Set your focus now.
Well, you don't want that.
I know it. I know it. So what happens when you're not young like Steve anymore? So, I mean, if you were to take this shot and put it anywhere, do a little work on the lighting, do a little work on the color, and you can put this shot on television anywhere. You can put it on YouTube, and that's just the thing that I like about this $300 camera. And for about $200 more, you can buy the GH4, which has even a better sensor, can shoot 4K 60. I don't know that you need to spend that $200 if all you're going to do is 1080p. But it's a great camera. But I cannot say this enough. It will not look good if you buy a junky lens. If you buy a $150 lens and put it on this $300 camera, you will say, this camera's trash. The camera's not trash. The lens is trash. You say, Aaron, it's $150. I know, $150 can't buy you a lens. You have to spend money on glass. And until you do, you will never get good quality video out of your camera. You won't. So spend money on lenses and upgrade your camera body inside of a lens family with a compatible lens. Upgrade your camera body as you have money, but spend your money on lenses and audio. Please first buy your audio. I know our audio is trash tonight. We were going to mount the shotgun microphone and it was going to sound really sweet, really good. And instead we're using the audio from the MacBook Pro's webcam. Disappointed me, but we literally didn't have a way to mount the shotgun mic because I forgot the screw adapter. But that's what happens. So.
Built-in lens.
Yes, with the PTZ, you do get a built-in lens, and that has advantages and disadvantages. With the camcorder, you get a built-in lens. It has advantages and disadvantages. Just know what you're buying, and preferably, if you've got the option, find somebody who has one and borrow it first. Put it in your environment. That makes a big deal. Put it in your environment before you try and use it somewhere in a paid situation or in a situation that matters. Try it out. You may be surprised. It may not work in that environment. May not be enough light. May not be enough quality. So, say what? Lensrentals.com. They are based here in Cordova, just outside of Memphis. That's a great place. You can rent. They'll ship you a camera, a lens, a whole kit, a light kit. They'll ship you a whole production studio for a period of time. Or if you live in the Memphis area, you can go pick it up and not pay shipping. And keep it for a day or two. Get a feel for how it works. I highly recommend Lens Rentals. Have gotten some spectacular pictures for family stuff when we were going to an event and we didn't have a really good lens yet. We didn't have a really good zoom lens for my wife's Canon camera, so we rented a lens for a trip, and it just amazing pictures because we had so much better of a lens. And we still don't own a lens that's that good, but we got good pictures out of that trip. That brings us to Bird Dog. So we have not yet colored these at all. Ooh, and you can tell. So I think I set these up on 2 different cameras so they're not going to both try and respond when I attempt to control one of them. So first thing is exposure. Do not use this camera on full auto. Gain is at 0. Iris 2.8. We are already looking much better. Woo! That was pretty color. One push white, we can roll with that. It'll do okay. So the one thing that you have with this camera, this is the Bird Dog P200. And in this camera, inside the network control especially, you have not only do you have a Sony 2/3 inch image sensor, broadcast image sensor, you have color control on this camera like very few others. So by comparison, you could get the level of color control that this camera has on a Blackmagic, so long as you're using a Blackmagic camera with a Blackmagic switcher that has color control. But you can't get it just from the camera with a Blackmagic. You only have that functionality with a switcher attached to it. This camera, you can have an amazing level of color control on this camera. You can do wide dynamic range, which in this environment with this much light we would not do that. Color, not quite sure what good recommended levels are on some of this. Shouldn't need any of that. The other a lot of the other this PT speed, it not only has the ability to limit the pan tilt speed so you don't get these really fast zooms. If you hit the presets, you don't zoom in at intense speeds, but you also have more control. So if you're controlling this over the network using even just a piece of software, you can make fairly smooth pans. You can make fairly smooth movements with it without having a multi-$1,000 joystick set up for the camera, because you can limit its speed. That's one of the things that a really good joystick setup would do. There is a joystick out there, control system out there, that even allows you to set movements, a recorded movement at certain speeds with the preset, and it's pretty spectacular. So one of the big advantages of this camera is not only its color control, but its pan and tilt functionality that generally you would only get out of a $8,000 or $9,000 camera. Very, very few of the lower end cameras have that kind of functionality. So I'm pushing this zoom button in. I can hold it as it's over. Let's set a couple of presets here. So preset 1, oops, that's apparently not how you do that. not used to doing this with the remote. I'm used to doing this with network control.
You got PTZ optics camera right now? It's $2,200 on GH.
Really?
Yeah.
I got a better deal than that.
Well, that's way more than it was a short time ago. What was that one? 1600.
Alright, I think I saved the preset properly.
You did it without the NDI for 1800, like you had mentioned earlier, that 1500 no NDI, 2200 with NDI.
Alright, so now I've got this preset in here, if I think I did it right. I think I did it right. So we could zoom out as far as we can go. That is one of the things with these cameras, you can get a pretty wide shot. Something to be said for a PTZ and for a built-in lens is sometimes you can get a very wide shot and you can zoom in a really long way. Like our church auditorium's 77 feet from the back wall to the pulpit, and you can zoom in and get a nice tight shot with a 30x zoom lens. Which you can't really do even with a 150 millimeter lens. You've got to have more than 150 millimeters to do that with a micro four thirds crop sensor. So you can get some shots that are hard to get, especially with a micro four thirds mount or with some of the other mounts out there, until you're going with sensor or something like that, and a whole bag of lenses. Flexibility is I guess what I'm trying to say. So here's, if I did it right, it didn't. For some reason it's not storing the presets. So that's a bad demo. That's what you get for trying to do a demo live. It often fails. And all the things that we fixed on every camera. By the way, that's what we have had to fix on every camera. The color, the brightness, the focus, until it's at a usable state. And once it is, it looks good when you give it enough light.
Or you could be lazy and you could put it on auto and put it in a well-lit room and not move a lot, and it'll look great.
Maybe. Steve thinks if you put it on auto in a well-lit room and don't move around a lot, you'll be okay. Well, I'm not so sure about that. I've seen auto on this thing, and auto's rough.
I'm not playing it very
All right, next to last, Bird Dog P100. This is a $1,600 camera versus the Bird Dog P200, which is a $3,000 camera, or just shy of $3,000. It does not have all the color control. It does have the limiter on the pan and tilt, which is already set in place, which is why it is crawling slowly up the back of the Atomos. We need to sell this as a product image placement for Atomos. If I just zoom down a little bit, we could get the Atomos logo in there. It'd be spectacular. And oh, are we bright. Bright, 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 bright. I am glowing. Glowing.
There you are.
Woo!
How about I just...
I am an angel. Don't tell my wife. Oh, okay. But it actually did a pretty good job of getting itself pretty good. I don't remember what the autofocus button is on this thing. Steve, what was that noise?
Nothing.
Exposure. We're on full auto. We manual, and we could bring this gain down significantly.
We're socially distanced.
That's right. And you can already see we've got better color, we've got less noise in our image. One thing I do like about this camera is if somebody's used to just being able to select the color temperature of their lights and pretty much have a good picture, you know, that color temperature and move on with life, which is if all of your lights are the same color temperature, then that's a pretty easy way to do it and move on.
If you were doing this the way that you would like to do the network control, would I be seeing these on screen?
No, good question from Steve. If we were doing this with network control instead of the remote, you would not see any of this on screen stuff.
That would be quite annoying.
Yes, yeah. So it has a web dashboard. You can actually log in through the web dashboard and control all of this without putting anything out on the screen. You can create presets without putting it all on screen. So there's a lot of things you can do here that we're not doing because we didn't actually set these cameras up on a network control.
Honestly, you showing it on this is not a bad thing. But
Yeah, that was kind of my thought as well, is having it on screen would be helpful to see, for people to see what we're changing, at least with the 3 PTZs. Because I think they're cameras that people are curious about. That was one of the things that I was looking at the bird dogs. I couldn't find anybody that could give me like a side-by-side with some of the other PTZs out there. People had unboxing videos of the bird dog. People had unboxing videos of the PTZ optics. But nobody put them in the same room and actually said, all right, here's one, here's the other. Because they kind of go head-to-head with one another. The PTZ optics is in the middle between the bird dog P200 and the P100. One thing I should say about the P100, as I mentioned, it is significantly cheaper, but it only has a 10x zoom. So it doesn't go in nearly as far as, I think we're about at the end of the zoom there. It does do a good job. If I can, of being able to zoom in and get your focus set and then keeping that focus as it comes back out, if you zoom back out. So like you would do with a normal that's made for broadcast and such, you can zoom in, set your focus, and then come back out. The P200 does an excellent job at that. Being able to zoom in 30x, get your focus, pull back out, create your preset, and now your focus is dead set for whatever that position is, whatever that thing is, and you can zoom in, zoom out, and it keeps that focus. It's really good at that. Parfocal, that's the word I'm looking for.
Varifocal.
Yes, parfocal versus varifocal lenses. I feel like I've gone a little soft since I zoomed out some, but
I feel like you've gone a little soft since you got older.
see, now I'm not soft anymore. The Atomos is just in focus. See? I don't have enough pores. That's the problem. I need more pores. Steve thinks I probably have too many pores. All right, last but not least, maybe least. I don't know. This one doesn't. This one is blank.
This one is blank.
Steve, your camera is
Because
blank.
You stole my cable, remember?
What?
Yeah, you stole my cable and never gave it back.
I have no idea what you're talking about. He's always blaming me for things.
That's actually what happened. There is an SDI laying on the floor here that I'm about to steal.
I want to say that I am not guilty. It probably goes to the Hawks.
No way. If I wanted your opinion, I would have asked you for it.
No, you've never wanted my opinion, so you've never asked me for it. So I just keep giving it to you. By the way, nice product placement there for GBN, like the advertisement.
I must say that this is not a work for the customer.
This show is not sponsored by.
I don't know, I think this could be very helpful for people trying to spread the gospel. To be fair. But no, I'm not here for
It's still black.
No, it is not.
Yeah, it's black. Is it turned off?
No, it is definitely on, but there's this thing called SDI in
And
SDI
SDI out?
and the SDI in is for camera. Look how beautiful that is.
Yeah, it needs some help, doesn't it?
Color?
Color, definitely.
Because you are totally in focus.
Yes. Now the focus is spot on. One of the things I should say, one of the things that's very hard to do is focus on a person or focus on something on a 3-inch screen. It's really hard to make sure you're in focus on a 3-inch screen. I'm not feeling good. I'm just, part of me is, I can't really say which part, but there's a whole lot of me that is just not feeling good. But on a larger screen, like 10, 11, and depending on how close you are to it, 12, 17, 18, 19 inches, say for instance, an Atomos Sumo 19, you can not only have things like focus peaking, which is where it kind of outlines the thing that's in focus with a color, so you see very obviously what's in focus, but also a larger screen, so you can actually see what it looks like when people are going to watch it. Focus is very important, and this particular instance, focus is dead on. Now, the other thing that's hard is focusing when you don't have enough light. Focusing in the dark is hard, and you brightness a little bit. It's kind of why
This one is very needy.
One of my complaints with that camera
Gained up
is,
all the way.
I mean, every other camera we have set at 0 gain,
This one's gained all the way.
and that one is gained up high.
Studio thing.
It is a studio camera. You are supposed to just have a massive amount of light in order for it to be usable, which, by the way, means churches. This is not the camera for you. It's really not. And it has, by the way, it has the same $900 lens that the GH3 had on it, that the Blackmagic Studio 4K had on it, and you'll notice the Blackmagic Studio 4K did much better. So we're a little flatter. I mean, our color's not as set on that one, but it's not noisy, and it's got more than enough. And That's been one of the things about those production studio cameras that just bother me. It needs so much light, and by comparison, the Studio 4K says, "Hey, I got light and to spare. I could get rid of some more of this light without any problem."
It is something I've always wanted to see.
Yep. I'm gonna come around there. I'm interested to compare setting for setting because I've been wanting to see this too. All right.
My gain is at 12 dB. That's as much as I can do it. White balance set at 5K. Shutter speed is at 160.
What is your iris set? It's there somewhere. I've been there, and I have found that to be one of the issues. Is it's hidden. It's a setting that should never ever be hidden.
Maybe it's in camera controls through ZCam.
No, I have found it on the box board. Swap me spots real quick. Because I'm curious to see this.
Thank you.
Because on here,
Your shutter speed is at 160.
you know, even brighter.
Yeah. Your gains at 0. Interesting.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so on this one, you'll notice that.
I do.
All right.
I do.
I'm using just the up and down.
Okay. I know where that is.
But it's not in the menu, which
no,
is
I know
ridiculous.
where that is. I know where that is.
But that's a mistake a lot of people make is they try to run the gain up, trying to get it brighter when they can, if with a good lens, they can open the iris.
All right. Check this out. You hit it. Here we go. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
How?
A lot more.
Yeah. Let me back the game down.
Yes. We have more than enough now. So what level's the gain at now?
6.
Okay. That's still not enough.
Yeah. It's 0, 6, 12.
Oh, 12 is too much.
Yeah.
And 6 is not enough. And that's sad. And what's the iris at now? 2.8?
Yeah, 2.8. Yeah.
So
It's fully open.
it's fully open. I mean, you could close the iris down some and have it gained up to 12, but by comparison, okay, we just closed the iris down on the Blackmagic Studio Micro 4K to 3.2, I think, 3.4 maybe. Farthest open it gets on this lens is 2.8. So you're closing off the amount of light, but you're also getting more focal distance where more things are in focus at one time. And you switch back over to that Studio Micro 4K, and nope, that's the ZCam. And again, we got some color work to do. Not everything's great, but brightness and noise and all those things are magnificent on this camera at the moment. And we switch over to the Production Studio 4K with great big screen on the back. And internally, they really ought to be the same camera. I don't understand why they're not. They really ought to be the same sensor.
Studio cameras, yeah. So
they're both studio cameras, but this one just needs so much more light. So this one is now at 2.8.
Right now it's at 3.2.
All right, it's at 3.2 on the Iris, but it is at 12 dB gain, and that's as high as it goes. And that's 12 decibels more of gain, more than the than the Studio 4K
Introducing
micro.
noise.
And yeah, all you're doing is introducing noise. So you've got this great camera, you just can't get great video out of.
Unless you like the smell out of it.
Yeah. Lots of lights. Insane number of lights. I mean, this is no dark room at the moment. I mean, with what we have on it right now. We could put more light in this room. It's not the point where I'm blinded. I can still see the other side of where Steve is. I can see the cameras. And so we could brighten it up another half of what it is without any problem. But it becomes insane. In the sun, this camera would do spectacular, I think. But it's not portable at all. It's,
You don't get any filters either.
yeah, you have no ND filters, so it's rough in the sun. It's actually too bright in the sun. It is a narrow camera. It's meant for a very, very specific purpose, and if you're not using it for that purpose, you should just not be using it.
We've tried.
Yeah, Steve says we've tried. There are some things it's good, but some things that it's good at, and it's got its strong points, and it was a specific product for a specific purpose. But you gotta have the right purpose. And I think that's kind of the the point to make with every single one of these 8 cameras, all the way down the line. I mean, the cheapest PTZ camera, the P100, I've done national broadcast television interviews with this camera. Interestingly, I have done it with it USB connected like a webcam and a couple of lights. And you would have, as a matter of fact, we had somebody who was helping or working with us pre-interview before a national broadcast. He said, this is so much better than so many of the interviewees we get, sometimes even in studios. And we were in a conference room with 2 soft boxes and USB connection with network control. And I wasn't even in the building. I was controlling it remotely from another location. Just a spectacular functionality. So this camera has HDMI, it has SDI, it has NDI, and it has USB 3.0. So you can truly plug it straight into a USB port and use it as a webcam if what you're shooting is online course videos or product videos for something like that. You're not, and you've got control of the lights, you've got control of the room. You just need something convenient that's easy to use. This camera is incredibly easy to use. Just give it enough light and it'll do fine. We've got the Bird Dog P200. You got color control, you've got wide range of colors, you've got excellent color. It needs light. It needs it more than the P100 does. It needs it more than some of the other cameras do, but you give it enough light and this is just a spectacular camera. Every one of these cameras all the way up and down the line has its strong suits, and if used properly is a great camera. There's not a bad camera in the lot except maybe the ZCam, and even then, if you need to mount a camera 10 feet up in the air to get a room in a place where you can't put a larger size camera and you don't have a GoPro and, you need a little tiny camera that you can put a giant lens on, even the ZCam has a place. We've used it for a lot of different things. It just don't care about that color. You won't be happy with it no matter what you do.
Fix it in post.
You can't fix it in post. This is one of those times where fixing in post does not even apply. You will not be color grading this video. But I've shipped them to places that I'd never ship a bigger camera or a more expensive camera, and that is valuable. And you can still get external audio. I didn't even mention that, but you can take something like the Rode mics and bring them into the ZCam, and you can get good audio and bringing out the HDMI.
Figured since you were talking about it, I'd do that.
Yeah, just remind people what it looks like. It's not in focus at all. Everything is in focus behind me. The colors it's a struggle. Color is very much a struggle. Without scopes and RGB parade and a gray balance, you cannot use this camera and get good color, get anything close to good color. With those things and time and a controlled environment, you can get usable okay color, but I mean, just buy a GH3 instead if that's your situation. You can use the same mount, get better audio, a better camera, it won't fall to pieces on you, and you won't have color that looks like this.
Really, at this point, people probably won't be able to find it.
Yeah, that is true, that they're just not available. I realize I'm spending the entire time looking down because that's where that's where my screen is. A note on that, good idea that I saw somebody on YouTube do that I had also had the idea to do, just hadn't figured out how to do it yet, is if you want to make sure you're looking at your camera when you're doing something, but you want to be able to see your video as you're looking at your camera, put your video on a teleprompter and put your camera behind the teleprompter, and then you can see yourself and see your video while you look straight at the camera. Or if you're doing a Zoom call, you can have a good camera and you can look straight at the camera and you can see the other people in the Zoom call on the screen in the teleprompter. And you can even use it as a teleprompter, but you know, who does that nowadays?
I'd like to convince some of my peers to use that for conference calling on a live program, perhaps.
Yeah, that would be spectacular. Because otherwise you do what I've done for most of the video, and that is look at your screen instead of your camera, and that's a problem. Steve, what else do we need to say about 8 cameras in this shootout? Is there a dead winner?
I mean, different strokes for different folks. Find the camera that works for you, that works for your budget.
Yep, remember your budget.
I still like this camera for a very small congregation on a budget.
This is the camcorder. The Panisonic camcorder does a great job on a very small budget.
It requires little knowledge of how to use it.
Yes. Once you get all of the bad settings off, which you can do with a couple YouTube videos, take the on-screen display off, get the right HDMI output, set the audio. You do those 3 things on this camera, and turn off autofocus. Turn off autofocus. This camera also, by the way, does very good with that parafocal concept. You zoom in, you put it on autofocus to let it focus in on what you want, then put it back on manual focus and zoom back out, and it keeps that focus dead on. Does a really good job.
I'm really impressed with the original 4K studio. Just know that you're going to need an external monitor, and those viewfinders are super cheap now.
Yeah, the Blackmagic Micro Studio 4K is an impressive camera. It does need a viewfinder. It doesn't come with one. It does need mini DIN connectors. Doesn't come with those. It does need a lens. Doesn't come with that. But if you have Panasonic cameras already, like the GH3, GH4, GH5, and you want a studio camera, it's a great option because you can just put your lenses right on it, micro four thirds. You can convert the micro four thirds mount to other mounts and use a lot of lenses, almost every lens on the market. The viewfinders now are incredibly cheap. You can buy a good one that has scopes, that has all sorts of stuff on it, really inexpensive compared to what it used to be. I mean, to run a viewfinder on this thing when it first came out, you'd spend the cost of the camera just to get a viewfinder. And now $150, $200 and you can get a decent viewfinder from 7-inch or something you could focus on. You pair it with a Blackmagic switcher, and now you've got camera control. You've got lens control with a breakout. You could even have a B4 broadcast lens control with a breakout. It's got a lot of options, and it's got a lot of flexibility in the right place, in the right budget. Do not try and say, hey, I saved up enough for the Blackmagic Micro Studio 4K, and you buy it and suddenly you can't shoot any video at all because you don't have a lens, a viewfinder, you can't buy it as a standalone device. Very much in contrast to the camcorder. Not a standalone device.
I'm recommending this one right here to most people.
The PTZ optics is a pretty spectacular and very easy to use choice. It does good in church lighting. That's kind of was their market. They said, we know every church doesn't have a stage studio lit, amazing production environment, and they still need a camera that can shoot, and they need remote control, and they need a lot of other things. And they built a camera and a couple generations of cameras around that very concept, and they've iterated on it and gotten better, and the quality has gotten better, and the pan tilt control's gotten better, and they have released a new Super Joy, a new production joystick for controlling multiple cameras. It even has HDMI out on it, connects with the cameras via network through NDI, and gives you a preview straight off the joystick that you can connect to a monitor. So
that explains why I hadn't seen that one.
It's about $800 for it, so it's not cheap. But if you're buying 3 or 4 or 5 cameras to put in a room or in all over a studio, you want a good viewfinder and you want control over all of them. So I think it's still just now getting out there in production. So yeah, the PTZ optics is a good choice. You can one of the things we didn't really test in this particular environment, but you can see it a little bit in this shot, is you can get some good depth of field with this lens, more so than maybe some of the other built-on lenses. So I've been a fan of what BirdDog has done, especially with their software, their control, their functionality has continued to grow. They're one of the few. Oh, I should mention one of the big differences between the PTZ optics NDI functionality and the BirdDog NDI functionality. PTZ optics, again, now this is all network based. It's not what we're actually using. We're using good old SDI at the moment. But PTZ optics uses NDI HX, which is a compressed video format that's only 8 to 12 megabits per second. You can run it over Wi-Fi. You can run it over a very consumer-friendly network, I'll put it that way. You don't have to have a lot of network resources to run that camera. The BirdDogs, the P200 and the P100, they run what is called full NDI. It's It scales anywhere between 100 and 180 megabits per second in HD, and more than that in 4K. They do have 4K models of these cameras, and even newer cameras. Their new one is an $8,000 camera. It's just, from what I've seen about it, is a spectacular camera, very much geared towards the sports arenas and those type of events, where you have small production crews and you don't really want to pay cameramen all the time, and you've got control, and you can run network all over the building, and mount these cameras. And they've got weatherproof cameras and stuff like that. So they're very very rapid pace of invention and coming out with new products, and still very reasonable in cost and production quality. I mean, I'm looking at this camera by comparison to some of the Panisonic PTZs and some of the Sony PTZs that are out there. Functionality, PTZ control, it compares with cameras that cost 3, 4, 5 times what this camera does. So they're being very competitive. Bird Dog is from Australia. The company is from Australia, so interesting piece there. But just know, if you're going to run it across the network, you better have a good network, good switch, network switches, good router, so that you don't start buffering or losing parts of the video or losing control because you're trying to push too much across the network.
Dedicated video network would be
Yes, ideally, ideally with this type of setup, you would run a dedicated video network for these, and not put it on the same network that you put everything else on, like your live stream, because it might bring it down, especially if you tried to bring it in via Wi-Fi.
Just maybe.
They're not made to be brought in over Wi-Fi. They're really not. The NDI-HX is made to be able to be brought in over Wi-Fi. 12 megs on a good solid, wireless AC, 802.11 AC connection is nothing. You get that much off YouTube if you're running 4K. So a lot of functionality. All this made possible by a very large TV case, number one, which is what's underneath all of these things. A Blackmagic Television Studio 4K switcher. Steve Ulrich, Aaron Kozork, some lights, a room, a studio that's being built, and just hanging out and having fun. If y'all have any questions when we do post this, feel free, stick them in the comments below. We'll see if we can keep an eye on those and answer them as we have opportunity. I think it's almost 4 o'clock in the morning. It's time to go. Good night.